Hello and welcome back to the Jersey Buzz. And as you know, we bring out the best of the community, and we're talking to some really cool people in the community. And this one is debunking AI myths and empowering small businesses. So this is a very heated topic. This guy here, Paul, who's my guest, we met at, I don't know, when did we meet, Paul?
A couple of years ago now. Yeah, 2 years ago. I think it was
some AI
Yeah, the AI was. I can't remember which one it was. It may have been the Princeton Grind,
yeah,
right? Or the Startup Grind. Yeah, I think it may have been there.
Yeah. And we just had some great conversations about AI because it was in the beginning, and you wrote this book actually interviewing an AI component. So I'm going to let you tell that because I wouldn't even know how to explain it. But let's start with the elephant in the room, which is AI. You know, I think people are starting to embrace it a little more than 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
But there's still, it's such a huge resource, and it still is like, I guess everything can be good or bad, depending on the user, right?
Absolutely.
So how did you get into all of this, and, you know, why, and the book, because the book's really well written. I finally read it.
Thank you. Wow. That's at least
and then
somebody read it.
I started using it as a resource. I was like, I
Awesome.
never thought to do that, to help
Awesome.
powered strategies for sales.
Yes. Well, so I'm a techie. I'm a geek. You know, I've always been. It's funny. I made my way into tech by going to culinary school, where I met my wife. So, but long story short, you know, in the restaurant business, I always end up being the techie, the geek. And so kind of when I had a change of career, I ended up in tech. And today, my day job, that's what I do. I actually work for Broadcom, and I got there through acquisition. They bought VMware, and I've been there for 13 years, and I run what we call pre-sales engineering and architecture. Today, I do that for our partners. So I work around AI during the day because we actually sell a solution around private AI. We are, you know, if you're trying to do that. But where I wrote this book was, you know, AI has been around, and I've worked in AI. You know, I spent years at Bloomberg. Back then, it was really about machine learning, right? And then we got into advanced analytics. And I did some startups there. It was always really a math thing. So what really intrigued me when these large language models came out and ChatGPT was really something that had a human interface. You didn't have to be a mathematician. So I just dove into it, and I was like, wow. I was like, I really can see, because I'm on the sales side, that people are going to use this. You know, I have a wife who obviously has a small business, and you start to realize, like, you know, the internet was supposed to solve a lot of things. And I remember years ago listening to one of the engineers who actually invented the microchip. He worked for Texas Instruments. And he had said at the time, he said he picked up learning the guitar because he felt the computer, the microchip, was going to solve so many things. He'd have all this free time in his day that he'd need something else to do, like play guitar. And I thought that was the funniest thing he ever said. But I realized it's actually what's happened. You know, if you fast forward to today, businesses, large or small, right, really are trying to connect. You know, how do I use Facebook? How do I connect with email? How do I connect with the people? You know, the digital divide, I believe, is real, right? They've got, you know, Instagram and Twitter and now Threads and, you know, TikTok. And, you know, how do you keep up with all this stuff? And then on top of it, you have a website, and you have business, and you have products, and you have all these other things, all these other platforms in your business. So I really looked at it and said, wow, can AI help us there? At least maybe with just connecting with other people.
Yeah. Wow, what you said was a lot.
Sorry.
No, because,
I get excited.
No. I get excited talking to you because you really know how to humanize this AI component and how it can help. And then, you know, we'll dive into like the with the kids and everything.
Yeah.
But for small businesses, when I was talking to you, like, first of all, anything good or bad depends on the user for how you use it.
Absolutely.
But for small businesses, I'm surprised at how many are still not embracing it. I'm just like, it can give you your entire social media content for the week.
Absolutely. It could do so many things, you know, just email, right? We get so many emails, and just the ability to write put your thoughts down. And this is how I use AI, and this is how, I think it's the best way to use it. Not to replace us, but to help us. Like, I know what I want to say, but when I put it down, sometimes it doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes it's not necessarily, kind of written out, especially when you're in small business. Like, you got to get on to the next thing. You could take it and you can put your words in there and it'll just make it better. It just helps you clarify your message.
Right.
And I think that itself is powerful. And again, not everybody is, say a primary English speaker. Or if I was even a small business in France, my French would be horrible, right? Like, I think I know 3 words, but it could take it and help make it more clear for the message I want to get across. I think that's where the power of it really is.
No. Oh, it's funny you said that. I'm going to be totally transparent
Sure.
to everyone. I will take an email, and I used to email it to myself probably 10 times because I'm a Virgo, OCD, want everything to be perfect, and I am not an English major. So when you're sending an email to a client, you want to sound intelligent.
Right.
And I'm like, right,
and
it depends on the day. But now I take my thoughts, I put it in to ChatGPT AI, that's what I use, and it builds this beautiful email, which I will take out, copy it, and I'll humanize it to me because it still needs to learn me. So how can, like, if somebody's doing that, is there any tips or tricks you have for?
Absolutely. So I'm a big believer. Like, I use several platforms, ChatGPT, I like Grok. I've used others. I think, and I use them a little bit differently. But if you're using ChatGPT, there's a few things you can do. You can teach ChatGPT specifically to learn about you. You can upload, let's say, if you've done other writing. So for me, I'm pretty lucky because I was a magazine contributing editor for many years. So I took all my articles that I wrote and I put them in. So now it knows how I write. And it's able to not copy me, but understand what I'm looking for. And in ChatGPT today, you can actually create projects. So if you have, let's say you're doing your social media, you can make a social media project. It's like a folder, and give it what your branding is and that type of stuff, so it will stay on brand. Then let's say you have one that's for your emails or professional. Maybe it's a slightly different message. I have to be candid. There are some amazing YouTubers I found, not just around AI, but just around for small business, around marketing, messaging. And if you take what they're doing and then you put it into ChatGPT as part of like how you want, what's the message you want, it'll keep doing it. And it's not perfect. Sometimes you're like, what just happened? AI just lost its mind. Like, that's not even close. And it happens. But you know what? That happens to us as humans.
Right.
It's.
What is AI?
So there's a lot. Some people will say it's evil, right? We say, is it good or evil? Really, all AI is, it's math. And what I tell people is, it's not thinking. That's what you have to get out of it. This is not a thinking. Now, there are people saying they're making breakthroughs in that. It's a prediction engine. So in the easy way to explain it, especially for the public engines like ChatGPT, Grok, and others, really what they've done is they unleash this algorithm to learn the massive amounts of information and data from the internet. So when we think of what we call the large language model, it learned for like English content how we construct a sentence, right? I think a few years ago, I forgot who, I'm not necessarily a music buff, but somebody had said, like, you could take all the top pop songs and they're like the same 7 chords, just rearranged. Well, language is pretty much like that too. It's, what makes language maybe complicated is the formation of an idea, right? If we're talking about, let's say, astrophysics versus talking about like coloring with crayons, the sentence structure is actually very much the same. The idea is the difference. And so that's what I would say. AI, really what it's learned is about sentence structure, word structure, predicting what words work next. So it's a prediction engine. It's like a big database with a smart front end that's able to say, Mary had a little, what? Lamb. And we just did that in our heads. We predicted what that next word is. It's just doing that on a very massive scale. So that's why it's very good with language. And then, of course, they're doing that with images, right? An image. And you'll notice that's why people, up until now, they're like, well, it created an image. Let's say you wanted a boardroom with a business person, and it puts the woman standing in the middle of the table because it doesn't know about physics. it just knows from all these images I've learned, these are the components. And so what they're doing now is using AI, similar to how you train a pet. You reinforce good behavior. So if you put the woman in the middle of the table, that's bad. So we say, okay, bad. And it learns. And it says, okay, it doesn't know why it's bad. It just knows, okay, they don't like that. And so we've trained it as humans, but we're also using AI itself to train it. So when it writes or when it's creating stuff, you have additional AI engines that are saying, or rules engines that are saying, no, that can't happen, right? Mm-hmm. And people who are into video games already know this. They create physics engines. So when you play a video game, if you're playing Call of Duty, the physics engine makes sure that, you're not walking on the ceiling, right? That when you walk, it's like on a floor. So it's kind of the same type of thing.
Wow. So, that's amazing that you can translate it so that you can understand it.
I got ChatGPT in my pocket.
I know, it's telling you what to say. So how did you come up with the book and tell everybody Sage?
Oh, okay. So when I started writing, and I was using it, and the reason I call it revolutionary revenue, I believe that's really what's happening. It is a revolution, and there are millionaires, and I probably soon billionaires that are being created right now because of AI, that will never have existed if it wasn't here, mm-hmm. right? And so the revenue is there. But when I started doing it, I was like, you started hearing stories of people like falling in love with AI and this and that, and I was like, well, that to me is kind of weird. So I said, but let me talk to AI as if it was a person. And I named it Sage, right? Actually, I think I asked it to name itself, if I remember. And it stands for Sales Automated, I forgot what I call it, Sales Automation Generation Engine or something like that. And the idea was...
right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wanted to humanize a little bit. But then I said, and when you use AI, you write a prompt, right? And a couple of years ago, prompts were a very big deal. Now we're building them in. So I created a prompt that said, hey, I want you to be a chief revenue officer, but I want you to be the culmination of the chief revenue officers that you've learned from. And then, I want you to be a sales expert. And we kind of I used AI to build out this personality. And then I flipped it around. I said, well, now tell me about yourself. Who are you? Why, why do you exist? And that's the first part of the book. It's just really interviewing. And I wanted to get across to business people that if you use this right, it is like having another resource. If I was a carpenter, I could cut everything with a handsaw, but why wouldn't I use a circular saw? And AI is to business what a circular saw is to a carpenter, wow. Right? So yeah, and that's what I hope it brings out in the interview.
No. So when first of all, to be honest, so I'm sitting there one morning and I'm in meditation. I'm like, because when you're a business owner, right. And I don't have a budget for a CEO, a COO, a marketing strategist. It's just me, myself, and I.
Right.
So I'm sitting there and I look over and there's your book. And what it says is, I think, revolutionary revenue, AI-powered strategies for sales. Right. And I went, oh, for the love of God, I've never read the book. But I like AI. Right. Because I found it to be very helpful for many of the things that you just said. Right. And I started reading it, and I was like, it's very well written, obviously. Thank you. It's you, and then you, the human, and then the technology. Right. But for example, just using AI to assess competition and marketplace movers. Anything that's on the internet, it'll say, okay, here's what the competition is doing for in New Jersey, right? Or whatever the specifics, and it will give you a whole pricing strategies, everything, and you literally just need to follow a plan.
Absolutely. George Gilder wrote a great book. If you're not familiar with George, he's an economist, futurist, whatever you want to call him, called Life After Google, and he wrote that several years before ChatGPT and all that became big. And what he was saying was that, right now we all rely on Google, right? If you want to search your competition, that's what a lot of people would do. You'd go and you look up. In fact, my son just did this. He's opening a bubble tea shop in Long Beach Island. Before he decided, he says he did some searches where the people, but then he went into AI, and AI within minutes not only told him who his competitors could be, what their menus are, their pricing structure, and really work that into his own business plan. And that's what this lets us do. So you can look and get much more information faster than if you sat there. I mean, we've all done it. I've done it, like, from whether it's for my day job or helping my family or, helping people like yourself. It's just sitting there like, okay, I got to click through 800 links, just to find something, especially now, because it's not just, 10 years ago, the internet was filled with people like us who were excited, we were blogging, putting stuff out there. Now you've got before you even can get to that content, you've got all this content that's just spam content, right? And by the way, AI has even perpetuated a little bit of that. Okay, so it can just help you cut through. Yeah, and it will, but it can cut through the clutter for you as a business owner. Sure.
Yeah, and as a business, I'm just saying, take the foundation, the shell of it, and humanize it to you.
Exactly.
But it gives you great information. Now, one of the things that we talked about that's important is, the kids using AI. Now, when your brain is in formative years, and I think your brain is a muscle, and it's always in. Yeah. I learn stuff new every day. In fact, I just learned some new stuff today.
Sure.
What would the kids like? What's the What's your take on, should they really be diving into this? Because I know a lot, I used AI to do my essay.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God. I had to use an encyclopedia.
Yeah, I was the same, right? But you know what? What did we do back then? You went to the Cliff Notes, right? Everyone shared the Cliff Notes, right?
Always.
It's like, we didn't actually do that. No.
I did.
So I think as students, it's funny. I think students and salespeople are the same. They'll find the most efficient way to get the thing done with the least effort, right? And that's kind of, we all been there, right? But actually, one of the things when I decided to write this book, I was actually in a hardware store in my town. And as I walked up to the counter, the two kids behind the counter, and they were college age, were talking about AI. And one was telling the other how they just did their essay with ChatGPT. And the other one was like, whoa, won't you get caught by the professors? Like, no, you do this, that. And I was like, oh my God. And they knew more about how AI was operating than probably the professor at that time. I mean, I don't blame the professor. Technology moves fast. Kids are usually the first ones. But now fast forward, and as someone who works in technology, I actually have a pretty opinionated view. And it's not what most people think. I think we actually should remove all technology, because I don't think AI is the issue. I think what the real issue are screens. We're putting ourselves and our children behind screens where that's their social interaction. That's why they can't talk to somebody else. They kind of feel like, oh my gosh, you're talking to me in real life.
Yeah.
In fact, my son's game store is actually named IRL. All the old people don't get it because it's called IRL games, but he named it. It's like his little joke, and it's like all the people his age are like, they're like, oh. They get it. IRL,
they get it.
Right. Anyway, but my point about that is that the screens are the issue. And I sit on a few, education foundations, and I've had this conversation with superintendents, teachers, teens. And I think there's a lot that in education we can use AI. Think of a teacher, the lesson plans that you could put together, right? I mean, and to take, teachers do a lot of work at home, right? They do a lot for our students. And then to be competing with the hottest dance on TikTok where kids are trying to watch it under their desk. I mean, we pass notes, we get it, it's a little different, right?
We stick our notes and put them in a chapstick tube and pass it.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, it's like, oh, okay.
I'm really aging myself.
Right. But I think if in our lower schools, we take away technology for technology's sake, get back to the basics of reading, writing, arithmetic on paper, by hand, because I think as a human being, we're an analog creature. In fact, that's probably why we're gravitating towards this LLM, the AI that's out today. It's not mathematical interface, it's a human interface. I'll come back to that. So I think for kids, if we get them doing that, we're teaching them how to use their brain, make good decisions, right, about their life and about just work in general, right? And not everybody, has to be, a doctor. Not everybody, should be going to college. Some should really be looking for, they're going to be great carpenters or craftsmen or plumbers or electricians or artists or writers.
Right.
And I think in those lower grades, that's what we should be encouraging. Let's find out who these kids are as them, not because there's a screen in front of them, not because some big mega corporation is rolling out a new social media platform with, and then by the time they get to maybe 7th, 8th grade, they'll have the knowledge of how to work with all these technologies from a human perspective, and then be able to tell. Like, I think the great part about my age, maybe you have the same feeling, is that when I use AI, I don't see it as a crutch. I don't see it as a replacement for humans. I see it as a tool. Like I said, just as that circular saw is for a carpenter. Is a carpenter who uses a handsaw to build a house better than someone who uses a circular saw? Not necessarily, right?
Right.
Well, it
streamlines a process.
Yeah.
And with AI, but I do believe the kids, because when your formative years of your brain is when you're younger, and I know we had to use the encyclopedia, whatever, which I hated.
It was a little dated.
I know, I was
right?
like, darn. But there's something to be said for the writing.
Right.
And it's like, it's a brain and hand.
Yes.
It's how we are meant to learn.
I still take notes if I put something digitally, I just can't remember it. But when I write my notes, I remember them.
Yeah. Well, it's like it imprints on your brain.
Yes.
Is basically what it does. And it's scientifically proven to do that. But, we are in this technology space.
Yeah.
And, there's good and bad with everything. It's a constant evolution. And I really appreciate your time coming on here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Everybody, the book, it's actually really good. It's informative. And it's just another way to evolve with life.
Yeah.
Because remember the website?
Oh my gosh, that was everyone's
crazy. Like, I know.
Right?
The website, it's not going to last.
Right.
I'm like,
it's a fad.
It'll be.
And people did crazy things back then. I remember there was a kid, he sold like every pixel of his website for $1, and there was 1 million pixels, so he made like $1 million. We were like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? Everyone goes and running and trying to do it. And those are fads, but the reality is the website's still around.
Still around.
We still use them.
The phones, the phones. Everyone has a phone.
Yeah.
Everyone, even the elders have phones.
By the way, our governor supported it. Again, I don't care about the political spectrum, but they're trying to ban the phones in the schools. And I think that's a good thing because, again,
I agree.
I'd rather see kids talking to each other, learning how to present to each other, learning how to take notes, and really just be human again. I think that's the key. I think that's where AI takes us, back to being human.
That's such a great, totally polar opposite of what everyone's saying.
Right.
But you just explained why. Yeah. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I know. So where can people get this book?
It's on Amazon. Okay. Just look up Revolutionary Revenue, AI-powered strategies for sales.
Yes.
Or you can go, if you're on LinkedIn, just look me up, Paul Gentile, and it's also on my website, Revolutionary Revenue.
I know. This is great. It's actually very well written. And I was like, I thought this was going to be over my brain power. I was like, actually, I need this help. So everyone, thanks again. Valuable information here, especially if you're a small business owner. And I'm very serious about this and this conversation. And thanks for watching. Remember to like, share, and comment, because this is the voice for community. And as you can see, we have some pretty cool people that live in it. Till next time, see you later.